And we are live. Welcome to Scientology Money Project with your host, Jeffrey Augustine. I want to thank Apostate Alex for making my intro. Let's see who's here. I want to start using that. Hello, everyone. Make sure my sound, I have to adjust the sound there. Okay, so good evening. We got a lot to cover today. My hat, I was out today chasing around some varmints. And anyway, a lot is going on. So welcome. Hi, Sherry from Minnesota. Hope you're doing well. Mischief Manager, glad to see you. Denise, welcome. And Wayne, welcome. I want to bring you up to date on some things that are going on with the LA wildfires, Scientology, and a lot of other stuff, some context. Just watching Trudeau, it's to be war. So the U.S. is going to war with Canada. Well, and then it'll be a very polite war. Is it a trade war? What? I'm kind of behind on things, Wayne. So war. Let me just see. Now you've got me interested. It's to be war. Are we going to take over Canada or Greenland? Or I don't get the memos from the Illuminati, or at least that part of the Illuminati. Oh, tariffs. Okay, trade war. Canada to retaliate. Huh. Okay. Well, anyway. We. Hi, Deanna. Glad you're here. And we have Grammy in the house? Oh, yeah. Hey, Fat Grammy. I watched you. You did a good show with Streets, and yeah, we'll have to talk further. I'm doing some stuff behind the scenes, and you'll see it on my blog probably within this upcoming week. I'm going to be taking a different tack. You know, we've got the protesters. And then the different communities, different podcasters. I'm going to be doing something on my blog that's never been done, and it's going to be mind blowing. So it is going to be something else. And like I said, should it be upcoming this week? It's going to involve some big names and money and skullduggery in the Church of Scientology. So upcoming March 6th is still the sentencing of Scientologist David Gentili in his $1.8 billion Ponzi-like scheme with his criminal co-defendant, Jeffrey Schneider. So I think they're going to get all 20 years. And right now in the GPB capital case, there's pre-sentencing going on. And I'm sure Ashton Kutcher and his wife, Mrs. Kutcher, will write letters of support in favor of David Gentili as they did with Danny Masterson. Oh, Fat Grammy, I got to tell you, Mona, if you like skullduggery, what I'm about to open up, it involves a very prominent Scientologist. It involves Switzerland, Italy. It involves a prominent Scientology attorney, the Italian Secret Service, and I've got names too. And they're in bed with Scientology. I think we're gonna show a lot of stuff. Oh, it's gonna be dirty. It's a filthy, dirty story, and it involves a certain glass artist. And yeah, that was a good show. Glad you guys. So a lot of different things. You can come at the beast from all kinds of angles. The beast of Scientology, and L. Ron Hubbard did say he was the beast, the Antichrist 666 in the original OT8 levels, of course. And hey, so we're going to talk about the purification fraud, purification rundown. I'll run Hubbard, and just a lot of stuff that's, I'm kind of eclectic. Spilling the tea, it's going to be worse than that, I think. It's going to be worse than spilling tea. So you can call it that. I just, I want to open something that was amazing is all of our good friend Mark Bunker, one of the original old guard, who goes way back to Lisa McPherson Trust, an Emmy winner, a true Emmy winner. He did. You guys saw those um, old videos of L. Ron Hubbard, the background is this back in the 70s. This guy found L. Ron Hubbard, this filmmaker, and I forget, Granada TV. They found L. Ron Hubbard and they interviewed him on the ship. And so L. Ron Hubbard, the first thing we note, let's share the camera, these controls. You know what? I think StreamYard needs to make the controls easier to use because your camera's usually in front of you, and I've got to share a screen. So Mark Bunker took Granada TV interview of L. Ron Hubbard where he said, I never had a second wife. Mr. Hubbard, did you have a second wife? I never had a second wife. And my first wife is dead, and I'm currently very happily married with 4 children. So it's that interview. It's not the fake Tony Hitchman, who was a Scientologist. Yeah, Wise Beard Man. And so Mark Bunker made these amazing 4K, and the Hubbard's voice is amazing. It's the first time you really hear his voice. Mark did a much better job than Scientology Media Productions. And but okay, so my first thing is L. Ron Hubbard claimed to be an expert. Dr. Hubbard, he was called in the 1950s when he did his PhD from Sequoia University. And he claimed he created what was called the sweat program. And that was where he wore this rubber suit and ran around the ship, the Apollo, and sweated. And that was supposed to do something. And so that was superseded by the Purification Rundown. So the first thing we note that I want to share is that L. Ron Hubbard invented the Purification Rundown, but he never did the Purification Rundown. That's a big deal. Why, Ron? Why? I mean, look at your teeth. If anyone could use the Purification Rundown, it's Flappy Gums. This picture, and I'm going to play some of Mark Bunker's video, and I want to credit him. And I can't figure out what's going on with Ron's mouth. He's got these flaps coming down, old Flappy Gums. Oh, Flappy Gums, Ron. So he invented the Purif, but never did it. And he's the very guy that needed it from all the cigarette smoke and drugs and cough syrup. And John Atack said that Flappy Gums Hubbard got sick quite often from his heavy smoking. So who knows how much cough syrup, coating cough syrup, pinks and grays and rums. So the very guy that invented the Purification Rundown never did the Purification Rundown. Physician, heal thyself. Hubbard never took his own medicine. And so what was genius that Mark Bunker did, so I'm going to share screen, and we're going to look at some of, and if you can't hear the sound, you can't hear the sound. I'm trying to play it, but okay, so this is some video, and look at Hubbard. And if you,
what does it do for you, in theory?
It increases one's knowingness. But if a man were totally aware of what was going on around him, he would find it relatively simple to handle.
Now, can you see how that his gum or his inner lip or something is flapping onto his teeth? Can you see that? Put a Y in comments if you can. And also, can you hear L. Ron Hubbard? Can you hear Dr. Hubbard? But I want you to look at his mouth. Like, what? I'm not a dentist. What's going on?
Any outnesses in that. Let us say a foreman walks into a plant.
Okay.
He looks around. Something isn't going entirely right.
So this guy invented the Purification Rundown. And thank you, his oral cavity, that is his mouth. Like, what? Do we have a dentist? Do we have a dentist in the house? Like, what is going on with this guy?
And if he doesn't know very much, it might take him hours and hours to find this out. The mind.
Now, so I just had to play Mark's beautifully restored. Oh wait, not Beth Orton. I love Beth Orton, but I wanted L. Ron Hubbard. Anyway, let's just stop sharing that screen. I listen to Beth Orton all the time. She's just phenomenal music. Okay, so, oh, come on, Wayne says. We all know that L. Ron Hubbard was beyond minor things like the Purif. I know, but what's amazing is this is the guy who needed the Purif. pinks and grays and rums. And he wrote that to Mary Sue, his third wife, that he was, using pinks and grays, taking pills and dropping, drinking a lot of rum. So he invented the Purif, but he never did the Purif. Now I want to give you some context for what locally here in Los Angeles, what we've been going through. So that I don't know why those flaps come down over his teeth. I don't know what's going on there. I'm not a doctor, but I do want to kind of catch you up on the local scene here in Los Angeles after the big fires. And there's the fallout's going to be a long time. It is going to change the political landscape of Los Angeles. And the close-up is disgusting. No kidding. It's not like I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. Not like that at all. So L. Ron Hubbard invented the Purif, never did the Purif. That to me is what you call in Scientology an outpoint. An outpoint. Gee, you think he was almost scared of the Purif? I think so. It's sort of like, doctor, take your own medicine. No, thank you. The purification rundown is for lesser thetans. Lesser thetans. So originally we covered on my last show, our last live, that Tom Cruise raised money after 9/11 for the detox purification rundown, which they tried to hide it by calling it the Hubbard program. They tried to decouple it from Scientology. So this is going back. This was dated 2007. So even years after 9/11, Scientology was still trying to push that thing. And ultimately, its goal, as I explained, was to get government funding and to get the purification rundown recognized by government agencies as an actual medical procedure, or, so that they could sell it to. So that's what that's what they've always been trying to do forever. And this is an interesting thing, what happened after 9/11, because by 2007, they had rolled out Danny Masterson, the now convicted dual rapist, is doing 30 years in prison. But there you can see Grant Cardone, who's, according to our sources, the FBI is investigating him. They had some undercover, and he did tell Gary Brecka that. This is a picture of Grant Cardone when he was on his way up. He still hadn't made the big money club yet. He was doing things like going after the late Milton Katselas, the acting director, and he was still not the big player yet. He didn't have the airplane. He was still flying coach. I don't think he had his jet at this. Brandana, did he have his jet at this point? No, I don't think he did. Anyway, this is so detoxification program, they call it. Detoxification. They don't call it Scientology purification rundown. They call it, in this case, the New York Rescue Workers Detoxification Project. And there's Grant Cardone and Danny pitching it in New York at some event. This could have been LA. They did these fundraisers here at the Celebrity Center and in New York. And it was so important that David Miscavige, the Führer of Scientology, boy, look at that shitbird, all 5'2" of him. Look at the guy behind him looking at him. There's a big guy behind him thinking, you twat, you little 5'2" twat. That's what the guy's probably thinking. There's a slight look of disgust. But look how serious David Miscavige is with his crooked mouth. So they put everything into the church has always tried to use the purification rundown under different names, as I'll show you, to try to mainstream Scientology. And so what's been happening here locally? Now I'm going to give you the context in which the purification rundown and Scientology operate. And so the first thing that always happens is people like Ken Ham, that jackass, are the LA wildfires God's judgment? So what happens is the fundamentalists, the Christian fundamentalists, are jumping in and they are saying that the LA wildfires are God's judgment. And in this is where's it at? Yeah, let me share the screen. This is really idiotic, but this is what we have to put up with here in LA. And I want to get, see. Okay, so on this website, Ken Ham of Answers in Genesis, he does a video where he says it was 2 days after they blasphemed God at the Emmys that the fires came.
Welcome to the 82nd.
Oh, wow. So basically, he's trying to say that because the Emmys blasphemed God, and you can see Hollywood mocks God, then this happens. So for mocking God, so that's what you'd expect from one religious community, that this is the judgment of God, and then the wildfires. So we have that going on, and that always happens. You know, Jerry Falwell, when he was alive before he died and went to hell, he used to say that and Pat Robertson would always say that whatever natural disaster occurred was the judgment of God. So we in LA are having to listen to these fundamentalist bigots talking about the fires are God's judgment, and the only answer is to accept Jesus, and that God withheld the rain. Never mind that there were record rain. We had record atmospheric rivers in the previous 2 years. In the previous 2 years, that we had record rainfall the previous 2 years. These atmospheric rivers, and it grew so much. There was so much growth. There was a lot to burn. That's exactly it. So the local religious crowd is just the judgment of God, and that's going. Religious grifters preaching with the newspaper one hand, the Book of Revelation, and the other. Yes, Michael, thank you. And they're going to they're going to raise money, and sort of they're going to want to get out there, programs, lead people to Christ ostensibly, but really it's sort of it's disaster evangelism. So that's the first thing that happened, is that we're being told, because we're Sodom and Gomorrah, and it's all the fault of we support gay people, transgendered, liberals, transhumanists, and we have people like liberal, like Adam Schiff is that liberal, Senator Adam Schiff. So they're anyone who's a target for the and this is the other Fred Phelps, these kind of people. So all these homophobes, transphobes, just go down the list. They're after, like I said, secular humanists, transhumanists, atheists. Scientology, of course. LA's home to the biggest population of Scientologists in the world. So the Christian fundamentalists are, of course, looking at Scientologists. Satanists, because this is where, and then like this is where the Charles Manson murders happened. So yeah, of course, it's sort of like LA is godless. Horrible place. And that's why the fires happened. The judgment of God fell. And that you have to, that you got to put up with. So that's going on here. Now, there's even influencers. Now, the influencers, this is a major disaster in LA. And it is a big disaster. And it's, unless you live here, you can't get how big it is. But people in Florida who've been through the big hurricanes know what that's like. Any state in Hurricane Alley knows what it's like to have a large scale disaster. And this is this is huge. So this influencer Detox with, was it Ginger DeClue? She sells detox products, but she's talking about Sodom and Gomorrah, how horrible it is. And I'm going to go to can I get her tweet? Is this it? Oh, yeah, I want to show you this tweet. So let me share this screen. I'm going to stop screen. I'm going to show Ginger DeClue. So I want to kind of show some influencers. And again, this is contextual. I think you'd be interested in it. I know I am, because I was just kind of getting a feel for it. So Los Angeles is burning, says Detox with Ginger DeClue. And she quotes, of course, the Old Testament, Genesis. The Lord rained down fire on sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, never mind that the Apostle Paul in the New Testament teaches that the Old Testament law was done away with in Christ. She ignores theology, and she pivots to Sodom and Gomorrah, meaning Hollywood. You know, that God was disgusted, but with Hollywood and all the liberal elites, et cetera, and you can go down the list. What, Brendana? No, Steven Seagal would not be on that list. No, he's not taken seriously. It'd be like Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks, George Clooney. You know, all the liberal elites, these liberals. So it's amazing that that this influencer. So the look at that. You can't get protein from fruit, and then God burned down LA because it's evil. It's Sodom and Gomorrah. I can't, this is kind of weird to get your mind around this fashionista influencer. So she's wanting to sell things, and that's what's happening. And it's just kind of weird to see a fashionista quoting from, for me, it's weird having grown up in the Pentecostal church to see a fashionista pandering and selling merchandise on social media. Like, you want to know how you can get seeded grape and melon juice directly to your door? So she's obviously going to ship it to you, but she's also quoting some of the darkest verses in the Hebrew scriptures from the book of Genesis. I wonder when she's going to get right to Deuteronomy and anyway, call for the death sentence of certain people, a whole bunch of people. So that's part of the context as well. And the reason I'm laying the context is, I want you to, let me just shut that down here and stop screen. Okay, so Christian fundamentalist judgment of God, and yet they're selling stuff. They're going to sell you the gospel. They're going to sell you their emergency supplies, their emergency food supplies, suggest you should buy a gun or guns. And so, yeah, the grifters are out. To Michael's point, thank you. That is, the book of Revelation is a multi-purpose book. You can use it in any disaster or situation. And so we have to put up with that. Now, we also have the law firms coming out. So Southern California Edison's power lines may have caused the Eaton fire. Check your eligibility to file a claim. So we have Christian evangelicals saying this is God's judgment. We need to accept Christ and then adopt a certain political agenda and donate to the right causes and whatever else. And we also need to file lawsuits because Edison may have caused this. So the law firms are coming out. So all the predators are coming out. And yes, the book of Revelation is so symbolic that it can mean anything you want it to. Yes, the beast coming out of, or the beast coming out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his face was written blasphemy. That could easily be L. Ron Hubbard. I mean, if you wanted to interpret it, right? And now the influencers. These are the non-fundamentalists. They're coming out, and media is all over this. They're selling detoxes to wildfire victims. So everything from beets, I am told that beets are part of the cure. Glutathione, HEPA filters. I mean, they're just, all these things are useful. I'm not knocking them, but all the influences are out, selling their own products and their own cures. So that stuff, that biblical stuff might fly if it was Hollywood that burned down. Well, it came gosh darn near. It came down all the way to Fountain. in fountain at it got close into Hollywood. I got to tell you, it came down a fountain up there. I was watching the fire live on TV and on Duty Watch and on local video. It got to Fountain and it almost got to Hollywood Boulevard. It was very, very close to Hollywood Boulevard. And the all the firefighters did it. They were night dropping with helicopters, and they really did a pitched battle against the fire. So the influences are out. Yeah, I mean that if it had gotten into Hollywood, it came within a block. That's how close it was. And they just fought it all night on Fountain, which is one street, just one street to the south of Hollywood Boulevard. And then it could have easily went over to Sunset and I'm sorry, I got dropped off. It was the work of Satan. Can you hear me? Am I back on? You put a Y if I'm back on. I want to make sure because I got bumped off for some reason. And I think I'm still there. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm back. Thank you. Yes. I thought, don't worry, folks. Don't worry. It was not the rapture, nor was it Satan. Thank you. 5 by 5. I got dropped off. I got dropped off due to demonic forces. That's a good answer. Due to demonic forces. Now I have to put my slide back up. Purification out. Oh, here it is. Is this Dr. Hubbard? I just have to go back. Oh, yes. Okay, so now we have Dr. Hubbard invented the purification. Okay, thank you. I'm back online. I got knocked off. I wonder if Masterson's watching this from prison. I wonder if Scientology thinks the fires are restimulating an implant. Oh, I bet you do. I bet they do, Adam. I think it's restimulating being thrown into a volcano and nuked by Xenu. OSA is messing with the fiber hub in your area. They could be, but I don't know. If they are, it's not doing them any good. I actually think it was demonic in nature. And because I was mocking God's judgment. So Ken Ham probably put a curse on me and Satan was loosed. Something like that. It's better than saying I clicked the wrong button. I have to blame it. So the influencers are peddling detoxes, smoothies, shakes, vitamins, supplements, beetroots, on and on and on. So there's always someone looking to make money behind this disaster. And now Scientologists, they got their volunteer ministers out and they do this all the time. This is one of their favorite photos. One of their favorite photos is to show really a dark a background that's heavy and gray, dark colors, so that they pop out like they're the only ones at the scene. The only ones. They did this at 9/11 where they made the photo black and white and then they colorized the volunteer minister in the rubble. And so here, the volunteer ministers are the only ones in the rubble. Never mind, I don't know, was 29,000 total first responders, firefighters, crews, companies, fire departments from other states, first responders, FEMA. We had a lot of people, but Scientology loves to do this. This is on their website. I just got it today. Like they're the only ones who are out there. And I have a lot of resentment about this, and the community should be outraged that they position themselves as the only ones who can help. It's given the billions of dollars that were spent and everything was ruined for these jackasses to position themselves like they make a difference. They come in after the fact for disaster capitalism, and it's going to get worse. This is why I'm putting a team together. We're going to watch the VMs and the purification rundown in the church, try to engage in disaster capitalism. And if we have certain remedies to use, we will, certainly exposing them in public. So Scientology's positioned itself along with the fundamentalists and the influencers, and they too have something to sell. And that something is the cult of Scientology. Now, this is a picture that has been beaten to death since, I think, the great earthquake in Haiti, of VMs carrying someone in a stretcher outside a National Guard helicopter. I don't know if this actually happened or if it was a photo op. Hard to tell. Generally, you're not going to let civilians like that on the helicopter unless you're rescuing him. So I don't see prop wash. So I don't know what the context of this photo is, but yeah, no kidding. It is. Same thing with me. It is. I shared that it's outrageous to think we're the only ones. They don't show anyone else, just them in the rubble and just them, because that's Tom Cruise's. Scientologists are the only ones that can help at the scene of a disaster. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a choppy, sticky wicket here. I just got dropped off for a minute. Let me get back on. So I'm going to take that off, remove. Anyway, yeah, they love to position themselves like that. And how many cameras were there versus yellow shirts? Oh, more cameras than yellow shirts. So this was the picture. And that one. Now this one, this got covered by Tony Ortega, and I'm glad he covered it. Let me see where it's at. You saw this picture. So this is a typical picture where they like to show that they're handing out supplies. Now, what I was glad to see Tony Ortega do, and I'm going to share the screen. We're going to jump over to the underground bunker. And Tony did a good job of covering this. Scientology's volunteer ministers getting roasted online for LA photo ops. Saw what you did there with that headline, Tony. But what happened if you hadn't jumped over to the bunker, and I recommend you do. I check the bunker every day. And the lowdown, not so much, of course. Okay, someone posted, beware of these people, meaning the Scientology volunteer ministers. They came to the Santa Anita racetrack donation center and helped themselves to food and goods for their low-income community. Wouldn't listen to us volunteers, and now half the food is gone. Yeah, the Santa Anita racetrack is a big place, so there's a lot of parking there. In fact, my dad loved the horses. He used to take me to the track when I was a kid. And like, don't tell mom, just tell her we're going to go, over the shop and do some work. And we'd go to the track. And, so let them rebuke those demons for you. Exactly. Satan, this is Ernest Angley. Fat Grammy, you remember Ernest Angley? He lived to be like 100. He had a 747. And in the 70s, I used to watch him on TV. And he was kind of a pasty white guy with a really bad toupee. He was kind of creepy. And he'd look at the camera and say, sinner man, alcoholic, homosexual, you need the Lord. If you'll dial the number on your screen, we'll send you a free Bible. But then he would rebuke Satan. And so someone needs to rebuke the demon. I rebuke you, demon of Scientology. So so Tony covered this. These guys ripped off supplies. So instead of like buying supplies, God forbid Scientology should spend money. It's like in Casino where Joe Pesci says, God forbid they should not steal money. So they go over to Santa Anita racetrack in their vans. They still have the supplies to go distribute. Well, it's like, go buy your own goddamn supplies, Scientology. Why are you stealing supplies? I mean, they've got billions of dollars, but they have to go over to Santa Anita, and it says, and they were over at the Pasadena Humane Society. So yeah, they were making the rounds. See the cameras there, that picture? So to answer your question, yeah, they were out milking this disaster for all it was worth. So all the camera crews, they would show up with camera crews and to make sure they got their precious PR photos, that they're the only ones who could help. And that's why David Miscavige created Scientology Media Productions. It was strictly an in-house. And I want to show you something, a compare and contrast. So during a disaster, they're out there stealing supplies, according to this one source. And I could go interview the source. That's not a big deal. I may go do that. But Tony's documented it. So they show up and they take supplies. Yeah. Beware of these people. Now, I want to contrast this. During a disaster, these guys are disaster capitalists, PR whores, out with cameras getting photos. Now, during the riots following in Los Angeles, following the murder of George Floyd, when the Black Lives Matter happened and LA was on fire, and what the church did, I'm going to switch tabs. Let me pull this tab over. The church, when it's in danger, when its property's in danger, it does something quite different. And so I did a photo essay in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter riots, when LA there was a lot of fires and damage from the riots. So they boarded up all their buildings. So when there's disaster opportunity that they can engage in, they get their cameras and they roll. They'll steal disaster supplies from other groups to distribute to look like they did it. Because apparently they don't pre-position any disaster supplies and they're not ready to go. They just go out and grab what they can get, or they run to the front of the line to make it look like they're handing out disaster supplies supplied by other people. But during a real disaster, they boarded up all their buildings. And this was partly during the pandemic, but partly during the Black Lives Matter protest. And I went around town and I showed how they boarded up everything. They were not available. During a real, when shit got real, they said David Miscavige issued an order saying, protect our property, board it up, board everything up, shut down all the orgs, collect PPP loans. The National Guard was deployed in 2020. Where were the volunteer ministers then during the Black Lives Matter protests, when a lot of LA was on fire? They were nowhere to be seen. They boarded up and they went into hiding. The test center, nothing. See that? They board up. So they hide out. When shit gets real, they hide out. When they have an easy opportunity for photos, they roll on the road with their cameras. So I want to show you this contrast, how they actually behave when it's dangerous out there. Some people got killed, and there were fires and police, and I mean, it was, it got rough in the streets. Even the HGB lockdown. OSA's up there at the top, 10th, 11th floor. RTC's, I think, the 11th, OSA's 10th. So everything got locked down, and they even called in their favors at LAPD. This is an aerial shot. You can see the HGB on the left side. LAPD deployed at Hollywood and Ivar to protect Scientology's real estate. And a lot of people pointed that out. And of course, there's retired Captain Polka, who covered up for Les Moonves, Scientology, all kinds of, it's too bad he retired. I wonder how they're going to recruit the new guy. That's a celebrity center, and every year they give LAPD Hollywood a big fat check. This case is $20,000. And so they boarded up. And I have a video on here where there was actually a protest down the street. Like 20,000 people went by the test center, but it was boarded up. So it was the biggest opportunity ever they had to disseminate, and they were completely boarded up. So that's a valuable contrast. When shit gets real, they board up, lock down, protect the real estate, because that's all that matters is their real estate. When they can engage in disaster capitalism and PR, they roll, because it doesn't cost them anything and there's no risk. So I thought they were completely hypocritical and cowardly. You got it. You called it, Amy. They're cowards. They're cowards. Lock down their buildings, get PPP loans. And during the pandemic and the riots and things like that, that's what they do. And so No, what I'm saying is they during no during the Rodney King riots, what they did is I have a photo of that. What they did was really ridiculous. In fact, it was I have a photo, and this is a really interesting thing. I'm glad you asked that question because we can diverge for a minute if I can find it. Yeah, they claim that they stood behind the Black community, but I'll show you what really happened during the Rodney King riots since we're talking about their behavior long term. And I'm going to share a screen. And that's, I'm glad you asked that question. And this was a piece I did in 2019. This is why I like a blog. You can search a blog, and it's not like having to search videos. No knock on YouTube videos. Those are important. I just like having a long-term project. What they did during the Rodney King riots, the 1992 Los Angeles uprising, they said they united with the Black community. No, they got all the white Scientologists. They boarded up the HGB, Hollywood Nivar, and they got every white Scientologist in town to surround it in a human chain to say, you're not going to touch our fucking building. And they acted like they were courageous. They formed a human chain around the HGB because, God forbid, they get any property damage, right? That might cost money. So every white Scientologist got called to go down to the HGB and form a human chain to protect them from Black people. This was so racist. This was so utterly racist. Look at that. All white people protecting their property. This could have been taken in Montgomery, Alabama in 1964. That's what this had, this KKK flavored thing. That's what the Scientologists did in 1992. That's what they did. They protected their property from Black people. And I had a Scientologist tell me this. And no one's going to touch our building. And then later on, they tried to backpedal. And then they tried to say, oh, we stopped the riots from spreading. There's another picture. They protected their own real estate. See, they boarded up. See the white Scientologists out there? This is a moment of shame for the Church of Scientology, but this is what they did. You know, look at that bus bench. How do you find a good attorney? It's fitting that it'd be in front of the HGB because they're the ones going to need a bunch of attorneys, and they have. So they tried to play it up later, and I'll put this in my show notes. They tried to play it up later that they stood and it says that they drew a line the rioters did not cross. Well, we don't know how many of these crazy Scientology fuckers were carrying guns because that is a gun culture in the church. I wonder how many were carrying guns. I think more than a few were. Probably didn't have concealed carry permits. During the Rodney King riots, the National Guard was out. Again, when shit gets real, let's protect our property. But then you go to the next generation. These are all Hubbard era OTs, Hubbard era Scientologists who would get out and, get in a fight. The Miscavige era, they're all pussies. They go board up and hide. Just like Miscavige, he's a pussy. So yeah, when things get real, they protected their property back then. But in the modern times, they just boarded up and hid and took PPP loans. And then they bloviate about dropping crime because they're distributing booklets in Colombia. Yeah, right. So that's what they did in Rodney King. They protected their real estate because mess means something. And, if the rioters had gotten in, they might have stolen the bust of L. Ron Hubbard, sold it for scrap. So that's what they did. That's what they did. I'm glad you asked the question. You are correct. And I have all of L. Ron Hubbard's racist sayings from the old Solitary Trees website on my blog. You can just go to my search engine and type in L. Ron Hubbard racist, and you can see everything. Lara, do I have Lara in? Oh, hi, Lara. Lara FM. We have a celebrity, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to see you here, Miss Lara. Glad to see you here. And yeah, Lara, you could talk about what they did, man, you were there. So yeah, that's what they did. So they stole supplies, and they got called on it. They got called on it. Now, there's another thing they do during disasters is John Travolta. This is, I think, Helena. Um, he flies his plane in. He did this in Haiti when his wife was still alive, and he brought his girl with him, and they got to the front of the line through his influence ahead of all the other military jets, emergency equipment. So they like to form these human chains and show they're loading supplies off John's jet. But that jet's not going to hold enough to fill up that truck. The jet just doesn't have that payload. And but John likes to make a short flight from his house in Florida. He lives at a special. He has a housing community with a runway. It's for rich people that have planes. So John likes to fly out, and then he does a commercial. So they'll deploy some celebs. Oh, hello, Christina. I'm glad we're having glad to have you here. So now a couple notes to make. Scientology's Purification rundown is a one-size-fits-all program. It's not specific to your age, your weight, height. It's not. They don't take into account, whether you're 500 pounds and you're 6'5", or whether you're 4'2", like David Miscavige, and you weigh 35 pounds or 65 pounds, whatever. It's a one size fits all. They don't discriminate based on weight, which you should in a medical program. They usually take your height, weight at a minimum. They don't do blood tests. Now, when you're talking about toxins that are in the body fat, stored in the body fat, you're talking about a very specific thing that you would normally measure with blood tests, or you would do a biopsy of the adipose tissue, and you'd analyze it using what's called mass spectroscopy. So they don't do it. It's a one size fits all. That's really an out point in a clinical program, because you have to, I'm going to show you what you got to take. Okay. This is a study written by Dr. Megan Shields, who died of cancer. She was a Scientology doctor. Exactly. They don't do your blood work, kidney function, anything, Amy. No liver function, nothing. So Dr. Megan Shields, a Scientologist who died of cancer several years ago, she wrote this along with Dr. Denk, who was L. Ron Hubbard's personal physician. He's the one who prescribed the psychiatric medication Visceral when Hubbard was dying up at the ranch. Let's break this down. Just take some time. This is like a classroom right now. The detox has 7 components. This is everything you want to know about, written by Dr. Megan Shields and Dr. Denk. And Dr. Denk got this from Hubbard. Okay, so you're going to do physical exercise. So before you go on the sauna, you're going to go on the treadmill. And all the typos here are Scientologies. This is a study, and it's not a good study. It's a crap study, and I'll show you why. But okay, so you're going to get on the sauna and run 20, 30 minutes. And look, if we have a Purif in charge, glad to interview it sometime. So you run 20, 30 minutes, get your heart beating, sweating, and then you're going to go into a sauna that's set at 140 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, or 46 to 68 C, for 2.5 hours to 5 hours daily. The real number is 5. They want you 5 hours a day. Amy Emma is our resident nurse. Oh, I'm glad we have a resident nurse. Thank you, Fat Grammy. So we have a resident nurse. Well, you're going to like some of the stuff I show you, Amy. I'm not a nurse or doctor, but I did work in medical equipment for a long time, in photopharmaceuticals and a lot of stuff. So I have somewhat of a background, not yours to be sure, but thank you for being here. So glad I missed this phase of the cult. And if you're a suppressive, they're glad you missed it too. Okay, so you're going to go in the sauna for 5 hours. Now you're going to take breaks. They want you to do the sauna in one period each day. And I have this post, I have the PDF of the entire study posted at my blog today, so you can read the PDF. So they want you in the sauna for 5 hours a day. It says as close to 5 hours as could comfortably be taken. It's done in one period each day with short breaks for cooling, shower, or additional exercise. So you can get out of the sauna. Now, they want to take nutritional supplements, of course, and vitamins and minerals. So vitamin A, D, C, E, B, complex B1, multi-minerals, blah, 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 blah. You're going to take a lot. You're going to take a huge amount of niacin, huge mega doses of niacin. You're going to take water, salt, and potassium tablets to avert dehydration. Now, you're going to take 28 tablespoons daily of a polyunsaturated oil. 20. Amy, should you take 28 tablespoons daily of an all blend oil? I mean, that's a lot. I mean, Amy, help me out here. Is that good to take that much oil in a day? 28 tablespoons. And you're going to take calcium, magnesium. Now you're going to stay balanced meals and sleep. Now you can't take medications, drugs, or alcohol. But what happens if you have to have blood pressure? Like Lara, if you're taking blood pressure medication or medically required medications, you have to go off them during the Purif. I understand you have to, as I read it here, and you follow your usual diet and not make any major changes in food consumption. I hope you got a good liver and kidneys before you do that detox, as you won't afterwards. Yeah, it can hurt you. Never, especially children. Well, Amy, that was my point, that this is a one size fits all. So whether you're a child or like you're the International Justice Chief Mike Ellis and you weigh, you're a big fat guy, and I'm not body shaming. I'm just saying he's a big fat guy. Not that I couldn't lose a few pounds. So where is he? Okay, so gosh darn it. I wanted to show you a picture of their IJC. Just give me a minute. So that's the program. I have the exact doses, IJC, the International Justice Chief. Well, anyway, I can't find him, but you can see a picture of him riding a bike. And the doses are really high. And in this study, I have the study up. So I'm going to show you, where's my PDF? Okay, I'm going to share a screen so you can just scroll through the actual study. Because Mona, I want you to see the dosing. So let's take this slide off, and we're going to share a screen. I'm going to go through this so-called study because it's the only study I've ever found, and I just can't see around my camera, so I'm looking entire screen. Okay. Now, this is interesting. This is the study. It's called Evaluation of a Detoxification Regimen for Fat Stored as Xenobiotics. Xenobiotics. This is really funny to read, Amy, because if you've read studies, this is like very officious. It wants to be official. A xenobiotic just means a foreign substance in the body, not made by the body. But the fact that they're quoting xenobiotics is so close to xenobiotics, one wonders about the presence of body thetans. And we'll get to that. Don't worry. So I have this posted up, today's blog post, and today is February 1, 2025. And let's take a moment to relax. I just want you to relax. Feel good. Feel good about taking all that niacin. It's 50 million grams, but you'll be okay when you get your new body. So this is, they go through this, and what's interesting is the only thing they give, it says a detoxification regimen right under abstract. The only thing they measured in this was cholesterol and triglycerides. It's like, wait a minute, this is supposed to get flushed all the toxins from your body, but the only blood test they took, Amy, was just cholesterol and triglycerides, which doesn't mean anything. But they go through I'm just going to scroll through. They go through a whole bunch of blah, 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 blah. The methodology, and this is where I got you 5 hours a day in the sauna. And the what they did after so they measured cholesterol and triglycerides, and then they gave you an IQ test. That's laughable. That's science. And it said in general, the regimen was well tolerated. They had one case of pneumonia, another case of external otitis, and one case of diarrhea with constant swollen hemorrhoids. So I guess, that someone with swollen hemorrhoids, it's like, bend over. Oh my God, it looks like Mount Hubbard was probably there saying, bend over, please. I'd like to examine your hemorrhoids. Oh, sweet Jesus, it looks like Mount Vesuvius down there. What happened to you? Probably excessive vitamin C. I don't think you're going to get diarrhea and swollen hemorrhoids from excessive vitamin C, but maybe. This was written by doctors. But it says, now, this next sentence, it's here, right here. And can you see the average length of the regimen was about 31 days? So you're going to do it 31 days with time spent on the program varying from 11 to 89 days. So some people see it on 89 days. The average niacin dose, and Amy, I need your help as a doctor, and others who are medical swollen. The average niacin dose reached 3,285 milligrams daily with a range of 800 to 6,800 milligrams daily. This was written by Scientology's own doctors. That's how much niacin they kicked in, in 180-degree Fahrenheit sauna. 3,000, that's the average niacin dose. So the range from 800 on the low side to 6,800. This is why I say the Purif is no good. It's a shit program. It's a one size fits all. There's no way you should give a child or anyone else, an average of 3,285 milligrams a day for anywhere between 11 to 89 days. It's like that's just out of your mind. Excessive urination from high dose of vitamin C. So, so they measured their IQ, but I mean, this is how much. So they said there was some blood pressure reduction, and then these graphs, and I worked, in science, and so they give some, but what they don't give is like height, weight, body statistics, male, female, they don't give anything. They just, this is meaningless information, completely meaningless. Because you're not looking for cholesterol. You're not looking for triglycerides. You're looking for how much toxins did we discharge? And then they go, so cholesterol and triglycerides, I mean, that's just nothing. That doesn't mean anything. And something that you medical types will find. So there's an actual study I posted at my blog. Now, I found something pretty interesting. I found something interesting because I thought it could be dangerous to try to do a purge of what are called persistent organic pollutants, POPs, persistent organic pollution. So let me show you this. In the case of obese people who have bariatric surgery, they found, this is a study I found, Amy, sustained bloodstream release of persistent organic pollutants, and that's what is stored in the fat. It found that women of childbearing age who had bariatric surgery, there was like a surge of release of persistent organic pollutants. And this study, again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm just saying I found it could pose some danger to women of childbearing age. It just goes into, if you look at the highlights, what happens with the toxins in your system. It exceeded a critical threshold of women. Fetal and infant health risks should be considered, for women who are nursing. But where it says objectives, it said to analyze the kinetics and characteristics of this release during drastic weight loss. Well, during the Purif, it would stand to reason that the kinetics, if you were indeed sweating out persistent organic pollutants, you could actually harm your body. You could die. You could have some serious consequences. But because the Purif really doesn't do anything, they don't have to worry about the kinetics. But you can see the sophisticated studies that really deal with it and how they go into it. I wanted to show you, so we're going to stop that. I'm going to share this screen. Now, I went into your point, Amy. This is where they're talking about how to take, they usually measure this stuff, the toxins in fat through blood. So there's plenty of tests out there. And this is how, this is why I say the purification rundown, they don't take blood tests. They don't biopsy your fat to see what might have affected you. They don't even do a background to see what exposures you've had. So this isn't medical at all, because these studies, they talk about how to take blood, what you're going to measure it for, and the ways. And I have another paper about how you're going to do a biopsy of fat using mass spec and things like that. So there's been a lot of serious science, and nowhere in it does it talk about spending 5 hours in a sauna. There is a quack. There's a couple things you should know about, and I want to keep a lookout for. There's a group, a Scientology group called Phase, and they've been around forever. And the unpolluting of man. This is a Scientology front group. And basically, the unpolluting of man is just another way to talk about the purification rundown. And it was, Phase has been around, and there's some people who get involved with it. So, and there's another group called, where's it at? It's the American Academy. Oh, this is another thing. The American Academy of Detoxification Specialists. So this guy, this is one of, like, we have paid cult apologists who do theology. So this guy, David Emerson Root, if you want to check him, he was a doctor. He was in the Air Force, retired as a colonel. He embraced the purification rundown and championed it. So they pull in a lot of people who aren't Scientologists, but they can pay to be experts. I would like a medical doctor, especially a pediatrician, to go on a channel and talk about Purif dangers. I would too. I want to get to Lara's comment. Do you know if there were specific policy from the coward in terms of telling the doctors or legally certified outside members how to ignore medical law and always stick to Scientology policy? Lara, I don't know if there's specific written policy, but what you would do, I would think, in terms of Scientology, you would never contact a doctor. You would, because they can argue, and this is where Scientology can be whatever it wants to be legally. It could say it's a religious treatment, and I'll get to that. But Lara, if you were to call a doctor, unless someone were having a stroke or a heart attack and you needed 911, it would be out PR, you would try to handle it all internally, but I don't know a specific policy. Maybe someone like Chuck Beatty would, or, so that's a great question, Lara. I'm sure I'd like to get the Purif IC hat pack. That's the job description when you're running a Purif. So David E. Root, he got slammed by the medical establishment. He absolutely got slammed for defending. He called it the niacin sauna detoxification method because he didn't want to be identified with Scientology. But people called him out on it, and the good Dr. Root, he didn't like it. He didn't like getting bitch slapped by being called a Scientologist. And he's got this funny little, let me find it. He's got this little cowardly thing where he tries to run away and he cries about it. Oh, let me find it. Just, I've got so many tabs open. Anyway, he was being paid. I'd like to look at his finances, you know. Where was it? I can't. Anyway, he complained that he was just a he wasn't a Scientologist, but he was a Presbyterian elder. And it says scientists independent of Scientology describe the Hubbard method. So you got to watch out. It's going to be called the Hubbard method. It's going to be called the what did he call it? The niacin detoxification method, the Hubbard method. But anyway, scientists independent of Scientology describe the Hubbard method as quackery, unproven, and medically unsafe. The Scientology operated Narconon drug rehab centers, for which Root is a member of the Science Advisory Board, has garnered considerable controversy as a result of its origins in Scientology and its methods. After reviewing materials published by Narconon, University of Oklahoma biochemistry professor Bruce Rowe described the program as a scam based on half-truths and pseudoscience. And Dr. Root didn't like it, that he was exposed. So Scientology has tried to get into the Gulf War syndrome to sell the Purif. And this is all to just make money using a garbage program. That's all it is. So you can go look up, if you want to see one of the hidden non-Scientologists behind it who are paid, you look at David E. Root. He was born in 1936. So what's he, like 99 right now? 99 there in Salt Lake. So you can connect all these dots. Yeah, take a look, Fat Graham. If we can find something in the render files, I'd like to see them. But anything that's out PR, of course, can't work. So I'm going to take that down, Dr. David Root. So this is the protocol. And this is something that's interesting. I think, Lara, you've been around a long time, so you can relate. Dr. Shield's study, this is the Scientology study, said that a variety of incidents were reported during the regimen, some of which may be suggested that chemicals stored in tissues were being released. Well, that would be the kinetics. But see, this is Dr. Shields and Dr. Denk. This is, well, what we'd call out here in the real world bullshit. A variety of incidents were reported during the regimen. Okay. So these were reported, but there was no blood tests. There were no tissue biopsies. There was nothing done. They were just verbal reports. And Amy, you as a nurse know that when a patient tells you something, you don't let them self-diagnose. So what Dr. Denk says is some of which may be suggestive. You don't say that in a scientific study. Some of which may be suggestive that chemicals stored in tissues were being released. That's a non sequitur. It's bullshit. You can't, there's no evidence. This is not evidence-based. You can't say that we had some incidents reported that suggested that tissues were being released. No, you go into kinetics. You have to measure it. That's why you do a baseline blood work or baseline adipose tissue. You do baseline measurements before the test. And again, because this is a one size fits all, it's not medical. You don't do the baseline blood work to establish that level before the test. And that's what you're supposed to do in a test. Get your baseline before, and then you take tests after to see what changed. And so there were reports, Dr. Denk and Dr. Shield, they're both dead, they continue. There were reports of brief full-blown LSD trips with hallucination. Now, this is saying that LSD that was stored in your system is running out. And that's not how LSD metabolizes out of your system. But I've heard so many Scientologists over the year claiming that an LSD trip got turned on like a light switch and they ran out the LSD, that they ran out cough syrup, that they ran out NyQuil. This is the Scientology mindset that Hubbard's saying you're running out stuff in the Purif, like you're sweating out LSD, so you're going to have an LSD trip. And this actually happens. Okay, this gets even funnier or more tragic. So it is a tragic comedy. Participants who had ether exposures, that's ether, prior to the trial, several had used cocaine and engaged in freebasing, were reported to smell like ether in the sauna. That's not even how it works. Amy, this is ridiculous. So you're supposedly people who had been exposed to ether, it was stored in their body, and so they smelled like ether in the sauna. Like ether, if ether stayed in your body that long and you couldn't metabolize it, it would mean it would have a half-life of 1,000,000 years, like a radioactive isotope. That's stupid. So they said, oh, I had ether exposure, or I freebased, and when I was in the sauna, I smelled ether. This is insane. Okay, so it continues. Old injuries would flare up with swelling or redness along surgical scars and then resolve over a few days. This is just nutty, but let's continue. The flushing, which followed ingestion of niacin, frequently would occur along lines of bathing suits or old sunburns. I've heard this too. Oh, I got a sunburn, and in the Purif, I could see where my old bathing suit. Anyway, I'm just the madness. This would diminish over a few days, then reoccur in a different pattern because you wore different bathing suits. So it's running out all your old sunburns that you had. Also, no blood pressure monitoring. Why would you do that when you're running out toxins? Why would you do anything medical? Man, that's, Dr. Denk was a traitor to medicine. Yes. And I'm the same way. Don't like saunas, but if you like it, good for you. Okay. So you're going to have bathing suit sunburn patterns. So your skin's going to be white and then red, like you were at the beach after that sunburn. Then you're going to run out the sunburn. And it says it was not unusual to have a person re-experience the physical condition associated with taking a certain drug or anesthetic. Re-experience the physical condition for taking a certain drug. So let's say you had cancer or radiation. I don't know what they're saying here, but they're saying that whatever you did in your past, it would come out and be somehow revivified and run out during the Purif. For instance, one patient complained of onset of mild right lower quadrant pain, nausea, lightheadedness, and reddening of an old appendix scar. This recurred the next 2 days at lessening severity and then was gone in 3 days. How about taking all that thousands of grams of niacin? I think that might contribute to your lower right quadrant pain, and that might require medical attention. But this is what they're doing. This is what they're trying to say is science. So, this is the purification rundown. And so do I have any? I have a couple other things I want to show you. So they're going to use front groups, and they're going to pitch detox right now. Forbes, do I have Forbes? So we covered social influencers trying to. This was an interesting thing from the Harvard Gazette. Now this is from Science that's coming up. I want to just share this screen to kind of show you some context. So let me see, share screen. This is some of the serious work that's going on. And because again, this is going to be a long-term thing we're dealing with. So this is the Harvard Gazette. Psychiatric epidemiologist discusses mental health toll displacement and loss and the path forward for victims. So this is something I want to research. I might try to reach out to her, but they're talking about the mental health impacts. Now, there are obviously physical problems, a lot of respiratory problems, And so there are real physical problems. And the point I wanted to make is that Scientology is not the answer to it. And we're going to go into something that I've shared before. So the body stores drug memories a la homeopathy. That's what it's like, drug memories. Yeah. But the real undisclosed secret, and I've shared this before, I'm trying to get the word out. There's the real, true, undisclosed secret of the undisclosed secret about the purification rundown that they don't tell you about. And I share this a lot, and it's important because I always have different audiences, and I want you to, I'll post this on my show notes again. This is what Hubbard wrote on the upper level materials. And I did a post on this years ago, and I just redid it, cleaned it up a little bit. And so it is The Secret Deception Exposed. Scientology's Purification Rundown and Narconon program were covertly designed to handle body thetans. And you're going, what? What the fuck? What the fuck did you just say? This is the real truth. These are some Vietnamese former soldiers who are doing the Purif in Vietnam. Phase went over there in 2024, and they got the government of Vietnam to pay for these little guys who fought and were exposed to Agent Orange. So they're trying to treat elderly soldiers, and I guess they conned the Vietnamese government into paying for this treatment. And that's something I think I know the people involved. I'm doing some background work on it. But this post I put up in January 12, 2025, right as the fires, because I knew they were going to do it. So this is preparatory work that you can share. And it gives diagrams, it gives some public things. And this is some information you can use. I invite content creators to use my work, use it to create your own content, share it. And I'm glad to do the research and share it. And so basically, Hubbard says right here, and I'm quoting from the OT4, which is a drug rundown for your body thetans. Hubbard says, so we have another phenomenon going on in the purification rundown that persons below OT3 case level would not be aware of. The B1 and niacin, by moving BTs and clusters out of the engram they are chronically stuck in, permits these BTs and clusters to drop out of her stimulation and thus cease mocking it up. This true brings about an improvement in the case condition of the person. So the secret, the undisclosed secret that I'm making public is the purification rundown, and the Narconon program is designed to use B1 and niacin to drop body thetans and clusters of body thetans out of chronic restimulation. And when they're dropped out of chronic restimulation, they stop mocking up whatever they were doing, and they give you some temporary relief. That is what's really going on. And that's pretty mind-blowing. The secret of the purification rundown that they're going to try to sell as detoxification is to knock body thetans out of restimulation. And it's right there in the OT4 course pack. That's what's really going on. And Hubbard, in his own writing, and I have the issue listed, and I have it posted on this blog post, that's pretty mind-blowing. And yeah, it is. That is batshit crazy, and it's not, but that's what Hubbard said. And here's what Scientology does, and I want to kind of close it out on this. Let me see if I need this. Oh yeah, as far as saying that Narconon works, just one more thing before we close up with what Scientology says has to come after. Hubbard talks about, and Scientology talk about it, but really, here's what Hubbard also, here's what the church wrote. And this goes to all of Scientology. You pay your money, But there was a policy directive in 1966 which says the church, its board, and its management take no responsibility for statements or claims made by staff members regarding the workability of Dianetic spiritual healing technology, or Scientology applied religious philosophy, or any claims or promises made to public persons, the public, or to Scientologists. So the church takes your money, makes claims about the Purif, but will take no responsibility. So what you do in the Purif is the same thing you do in every Scientology course. You have to self-attest. You have to self-attest that you've completed it. And I had that in the presentation. You self-attest. The church doesn't stand behind anything. A staff member could tell you, sign up for the Purif to detoxify your body from the wildfires. So they could say that, but they're not going to stand behind it. And that's an amazing thing, is they will not stand behind it. So they're not going to stand behind it. The self-attestation is in the study where basically, let me get this. You basically do it until you self-testify that you feel everything's gone. If I could get that quote. No, let me see. Oh, I had it ready for you. Let me see if I can find it here. Because I do want to show it to you, because it's kind of mind-blowing on their study where it comes down to you have to say when you feel like you've run everything out. Oh, here it is. I'm just going to share a screenshot. Okay, let me go. This is from the study, and this is the other thing. So it's about body thetans, but Mona, Amy, this is like a doctor does not allow the patient to say when they're done with the treatment. There has to be independent testing. I mean, you listen to the patient, but the whole thing, and this is where Scientology puts all the burden, it shifts all the burden onto you. I'm going to share a screenshot. Okay, so basically, in this is what the Scientology doctor, Dank and Megan Shields, they wrote. This regimen, the Purification Rundown, was followed daily for about 3 weeks, and until the individual subjectively realized the point at which his body was free from impurities. That's it. That's the phenomena, the EP. The individual subjectively realized the point at which his body was free from impurities. So again, there's no blood test. It's a one size fits all, whether you're 5'1" like David Miscavige or you're 6'8" and weigh 500 pounds. It doesn't matter. You're going to testify. So they don't have any baseline measurements before and after. They don't do any testing. You're going to testify all on your own. You're going to go from 11 to 89 days like they did in the test. And then you're going to testify that I feel like I'm free from impurities. But what Hubbard is saying on the upper levels, and that you don't know, you're going to say, I feel like I'm free from impurities, but you don't have any scientific basis to say that. You're other than, I feel like I'm free from impurities. But what's really happening, according to L. Ron Hubbard, is your body thetans have dropped out of her stimulation because you've sweated enough and you've had enough B1 and niacin to knock them out of her stimulation. So try to get your mind out of that batshit crazy fat Grammy. You are correct. So they're speaking out of all sides of their mouth. The church is saying, we're not responsible for any claims made. You self-attest that you subjectively attest that you're free from impurities with no medical testing. And yeah, so I could just say I don't need no more audits because all my BTs are gone. It's not that easy, my dear. No, it's not that easy. That's what happens at some point on OT7. You attest, but you got to go through it all first, because as Hubbard said, the only way out is through. So I thought that was interesting. And so Scientology, so you're done with the Purif. What happens next? Yeah, purity. Yeah, impurity is like disposable income. And do you have any money left in the bank? You do. Oh, then you must have a lot of BTs we have to work through. So I think it's one of those things where as BTs decrease, so does your bank account. We could graph that. Your progress in Scientology goes up, but your bank account goes down. So it'd be that kind of graph. So, okay, you've done, okay, now we're going to finish up here. And, okay, so you're done. You're done. And you've testified my body's free from impurities, but secretly your BTs have just settled down a little bit. So Scientology is not done with you. You're not done. You're not done with Scientology because they have something that they want you to know. Okay, so you feel like you're done, and Scientology website wants you to make a full recovery. They want you to make a full recovery. So I went on their website. Okay, so I wanted to know, okay, I'm done with the Purif. Do I just go home and go back to smoking cool cigarettes and drinking scotch? I don't drink scotch, like bourbon, but Scientology says making a full recovery. There is one more step after the purification rundown to achieve a full recovery from drugs. Now, actually, you've got to go on to Scientology, and then you got to go do your levels, go clear, then do the OT levels, blah, blah, blah. But they want you, it says, complete freedom from the damaging effect of drugs requires that a person also deal with the mental image pictures from having taken drugs. So follow the logic here, folks. I'm going to wind it all up in a magnificent opus. And that's why you listen to the Scientology Money Project. Okay. So Hubbard teaches that if you take drugs, they generate mental image pictures. And you have to, so the purification rundown will handle the drug residues, and you'll testify that I don't feel like I have any more impurities. Okay, got it. So the purification rundown gets rid of the drug residues that keep these mental pictures image mental image pictures and restimulation. Okay. So they get rid of the drug residues that keep the mental image pictures and restimulation, but the pictures still exist. So what happens is the drug residues were restimulating mental image pictures. And don't ask me to make this make sense. I'm just telling you what they say, but I'm also telling you the code word mental image pictures is actually meaning body thetans. Okay. So the mental image pictures exist. So you're free from impurities. However, in Hubbard's world, because of product line, you've got to keep the product line expansion going. So you're free of drug residues, got it, but your mental image pictures are still there. They can be restimulated by perceptions in the person's surroundings and have a bad effect. So what you have to do is do the drug rundown. And that really opens the door into Dianetics, the reactive mind, and then on to Scientology. So you have to do the drug rundown. After the Purif, you've cleaned up the drug residues, but not the mental image pictures. But of course, as we saw, Hubbard said, you're actually dropping BTs out of her stimulation. So that's how the whole thing works. You think you're running out drug residues. Good. You run them out until you say, I don't feel like I have any more impurities or drug residues in me. Good. Oh, but you still have mental image pictures. So you have to do the drug rundown. Okay, I'll do the drug rundown. Then you have to go handle your first dynamic yourself by doing the lower bridge, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. And then when you attest clear and you no longer have your reactive mind, well, you now have a BT case. So it's all part of the interconnected alternative medical universe. I'd call it a wealth extraction scheme, but we'll take that. So that's it. That's kind of it in a nutshell. we went through a lot of material, and anyway, that's it. And so I'm watching the so anyway, that's it. I'm watching the Scientology volunteer ministers. They look like they're wrapping up their work. They still have a donation station, and at Big Blue, where instead of them paying for stuff, they expect the community to donate stuff to them. And then I'm going to watch the Purification roll out under different names. I'm looking for local Scientologists, maybe like Joe Hockman, to put a to put a sauna in their garage or home. And you definitely feel smarter. That's one of the results of the purification rundown, is that you'll feel smarter. So anyway, is that guy still pressure washing the sidewalk? I don't know. Probably. I don't know. There was a lot of ash fall here, so I don't know. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the show. And I'm going to go on my blog and post the show links to everything. And I hope you make a full recovery from whatever it is, assuming you need a recovery. I'm fine. I don't need to recover. But thank you for watching the Scientology Money Project. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed presenting that. So anyway, Scientology, OSA, we're watching you. And next week, some big stuff's going to go down. And there's certain rich lady who not going to like what she sees, but it's going to be the truth. It's going to be the truth. And as R. Hubbard said, what's true for you is true for you. So with that in mind, we're going to exit. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging around. I do long form podcasts. And again, feel free to share any of the content you like. So we're going to crank up the music. What do we want to go out on? We're going to go out on some rock and roll. And see you next week or soon, whenever I feel like doing it. And I'm going to go out on B1.